Welcome to At Home Is Now. My name is Wanaka Overhuber, and I'm your host. My guest today is Roy Black. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me today. It's an honor and a privilege.
So let's start with a question that I like to ask. What are you most excited about today, and how does that add to your joy in life?
So, what I'm most excited about today is my upcoming book release. Um, it's a book that I've been working on for a couple months now. I'm right here at the finish line now, so I would say that's what I'm most excited about right now.
That's wonderful. What is the book about, and how does it contribute to your life and to other people's lives?
All right. So the book is it's my autobiography. It's a story that I've been saying I wanted to write since my sophomore year, maybe even my freshman year. I'm not sure. Um, but way back then, I wrote pages or wrote ideas, but I never formulated it into a book. Right. So this year, I said, I'm gonna take on that challenge. I'm going to start it. Right. Because I know one thing about myself is it's hard for me to start something and not finish. So once I had that thought process, I started it, and then it's been times where I had my doubts, and I didn't think that I was going to be able to complete it. But like I said, I'm right here at the finish line. It's my autobiography, so it's all about me. So that helped me write it a little bit, right? Because like, nobody knows me but me, right? So the book talks about mental health. It talks about therapy. It talks about the trials and tribulations that I had to endure growing up. Growing up in a broken home, um, I've dealt with abandonment issues. I felt unwanted, devalued, demasculated, dehumanized, a whole bunch of different stuff, right? That can that affects the mind. So I went from a person that looked at mental health as an excuse for a lot of people. I looked at mental health as something that people just throw out there. But now I'm a strong advocate for mental health, right? So I'm here to let everybody know that no matter what you're going through, there's somebody out there that'll help you get back on your feet, and that you're not alone. Because I know how it feels, right? It's a long, lonely road, feeling depressed and all that. So I just want people to feel encouraged. I'm here to uplift people and bring positivity.
Wow. So you went through so much, and then the way you worked with it brought you to a place where you can add positivity to people's lives and feel very uplifted in your own life. Am I
Right,
correct?
right. Sometimes in life, you go through so much and you see the pain that you feel yourself. And, you learn to empathize a little bit. And, I found myself saying, I wouldn't wish the emotions that I was going through on my worst enemy. Like, that's what I say. I'm all about positivity. And I just want to encourage people. I want people to feel happy. I want people to feel wanted and loved and things of that nature. So, like I said, I'm a strong advocate for mental health. And I just want to bring awareness with this autobiography. I feel like I definitely got a story to tell, and I feel like those who read it will understand me better. I think they will learn something about not only myself but for themselves as well, right? Because we all go through things. It might be things that right off the top of your mind you might not feel like you can relate to, but you might read something from my book and say, you know what, that resonate with me, right? And it might have been a time in your life where you struggled to overcome an obstacle. And in reading this, maybe I can show you the way. Maybe you can read some of the words in this book and say, if he can do it, I can do it. Right. And at the end of the day, it's about bringing awareness to people.
Yeah, and mental health issues are something that no matter how you think about it, everyone has something they're dealing with. And some are more pronounced or also get the label that they're a mental health issue. Others don't, but everyone has their issues. So yeah, I think it's a really beautiful thing to believe that what you have to share is something that can support other people as well, and they can find things that are helpful to them.
Right. So is it like so? Let's see, off the top of my mind, I'm trying to think of the chapters. So I've moved around a lot growing up, right? So I know I was born in Newark, New Jersey, and so chapter one talks about when I was in living with my mom in Newark and growing up and witnessing my father as an off and on drug addict, and my mom was a young mother at the time. Now I have a younger brother, so it's five of us in total. But two of us share the same dad. The other three they share a different dad. So chapter one just talks about from birth until I was like 2 years old, which is not a lot that I could remember. So what I did was, I asked my mom, I asked my older brother, I interviewed people, and I took some information from them to put into chapter one. And chapter two, it still stays in the realm of the time span where I lived in Newark, but it's when I was in foster home. Because from 2 years old to 5 years old, I was in foster home. So that's what chapter two talks about, right? Um, you know, and then, chapter three talks about how we moved from Newark to Delaware, right? I stayed there for like 5 or 6 years. So it talks about my journey and my living experiences in Delaware. And then from Delaware, it leads into chapter four, which talks about when I lived in Toms River, New Jersey. From there, chapter five talk about when I lived in North Carolina with my father, which is a different dynamic, right? I lived with my mom majority of my childhood life, but then I lived with my father for like 5 years. So it was just different. It was structured differently. It was just everything about it was different. My father lives down south. He is religious. He's a person in the church. So that was different. Cause like on my mom's side, we're more outgoing, we're more down to earth, we're more I don't know, obnoxious at times. we just we like to live a little bit, right? We don't confine ourselves to you have to be one way. So like I said, it was a whole different dynamic. And I went through my trials and tribulations with my father, and so I left there and I moved back with my mom. And that's what we talk about chapter six, which is I lived in Bayville, New Jersey. So the autobiography it chronicles my life from birth until 18 years old. Um, so the rest of the chapters is just it's just broken down to the specific things. Like I have a chapter that talks about unexpected support that I've gotten throughout the course of my life. It talks about behavior issues, right? Because growing up, I dealt with a lot of anger, a lot of rage. I was full of resentment, more so towards male figures or people that was an authority figure. So it's a chapter that just talks about that. I have a chapter that talks about my four brothers. Right, it's just about them, the bond I had with them, the lack thereof. The chemistry, how they helped shape and mold me to who I am. I have a chapter that's just talk about my mom, right? The relationship with my mom. Uh, you know, in school, when you're young, a lot of schools they ask you who your hero is. A lot of people say firefighter, or they might say Batman or Superman. I always said my mother, and I wouldn't say criticize, but they used to like to poke fun whenever I said that. And, they used to laugh and like that's so hilarious. Your mom and people was like you're a mama's boy. I wouldn't necessarily say I'm a mama's boy, but like I just was always there for my mom, and I always had this thing in my mind where I said that my mom don't need another man in her life. Like I'll be able to provide everything that she needs. Now at a young age, imagine just having it carrying that burden, thinking that you can play superhero for your mother, right? And that's what I was. And even now, like it bothers me to not be able to do for her the way I envision it, right? But it's a thing called life, And I have kids; they come first, right? So a lot of people say you got to put yourself first. I don't know. It's tough for me. I feel like your kids come first. So yeah, the book after like chapter six, it just breaks it down to specific things, you know. So like I said, I feel like I got a story, and the book is just not just talk about my life. It's also like Like it's for me, the way I look at it is like therapeutic, or it could be therapeutic for certain people. It's like life lessons and things I've learned and things that worked for me that may work for somebody else.
And maybe you would like to give an example of one of those challenges you had and how you moved through it and what lessons you learned or what you um, pass on to
So
people when you talk about that.
so like okay, like an example, like so since birth, like my father, he never really accepted me, right? I was light skinned. Like right now, people don't say I'm light skinned now, but when I was younger, I was very light skinned. So he always said that he wasn't my father. I wasn't his son. He accused my mom of adultery, cheating. And then he just never took a liking to me, but he took a liking to my younger brother, right? And I think that's where a lot of resentment came from, a lot of jealousy or insecurities or a lot of different emotions at that age. And it wasn't easy. It wasn't My life wasn't linear. It wasn't straightforward. I had to develop into who I am, right? Because I used to fight all the time and getting locked up for petty stuff like simple assaults and stuff like that. Now, at a young age, I looked at it as something being cool. But the thing is, a lot of people that said they was my friend or portrayed themselves as a friend looked at me as a problem, as a troublemaker, as you know, a criminal, or however you want to put it. So as I got older, and I'm like, wow, all these people I thought that was there for me are now pushing me aside or telling me, they can't surround themselves around me because I bring negativity. So I had to change. I had to, everything is built on perception. So if I want to be perceived in a certain manner, I had to dig deep, do some self evaluation, self reflection, and I had to make those changes. So I mean, I would say that would be like one of the examples. Just how feeling unwanted and feeling like you know nobody wanted me around. I had to put myself first. I had to love myself and know my value and my worth, and motivate myself to become a better person. So I mean, I don't know if that's what you was looking for, but that's an example of something that I went through.
So, what are the steps you went through in order to value yourself more and put yourself first? Because that's something that is the right thing to do, of course, right? Because you need to value yourself and see yourself as worthy and worthwhile no matter what is going on, right? Because otherwise you will, yeah, just not value life at all, right? Because how can you value anything if you can't value your existence?
Right. So it was very difficult, and I would say I haven't started to develop these strategies and coping mechanisms until uh maybe my sophomore year in high school. It might have been my junior year, where I had certain people in my life that were positive, and they was there to encourage and uplift me and try to help guide me in the right direction. But at the time I didn't really see it. Like one person was my guidance counselor in high school. She was always there. She always provided for me when my father wouldn't. She did, she gave me the resources and the tools necessary for success. And then, I it came a point in my life where I just said, I need help, right? I need to speak to somebody that's not gonna be biased, somebody that's not gonna be judgmental, somebody that's gonna be patient, somebody that's gonna be sympathetic and empathetic. So my guidance counselor plugged me into, a therapist. So when I was in school, I was seeing a therapist once a week. And it's crazy because it wasn't court ordered or nothing like that. It's something that I asked for. And it still took me weeks before I spoke to my therapist. I used to just go there and just sit on the couch in silence until that hour was up. Um, it took for one day, I had a break. I just couldn't hold it in no more. And I just broke down and I cried from everything that I was going through at the time, like the constant battles with my father, on top of feeling like I wasn't ever going to be anything because that's what I was always told growing up. Um, and then the therapist at the time, he hugged me as if he was my father, and in that moment, he felt fatherly. He provided something that was missing in my life. He filled a void in that moment, and then I broke down and I conveyed myself to him, and ever since then, every week I went in there and I expressed myself, my thought patterns, and my feelings towards everything, and he really helped me during those dark times.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing is that you learn to see that uh, there is that support that you need, right? If you let it in, right?
Right.
And so that's beautiful. Yeah, it's a good example. So in A Course in Miracles, I don't know if you're familiar with the book. It speaks of how we are all infinitely valuable in the mind of God. Now, we should also see each other as infinitely valuable, right? Of course,
Right.
because if God sees us that way, then we should see each other that way as well, right? And see God that way, right? And
Right.
so that's a very powerful thing to shift from this feeling you're dejected, you're not good enough, you won't make it in life, to understanding that you are valued and that it's okay to have feelings, because I mean you were showing feelings that you were probably hiding from those sources that were giving you the feeling that you were not valuable, right?
Right. You know, it, so like I said, my life wasn't linear. So a lot of what I'm going, a lot of tactics, a lot of coping mechanisms was something I had to grow into. I had to, it's knowing that life is a process, right? It's not a race; it's a process. Um, and it's an ongoing process. You're never too old to learn. So I had to dig deep and just have that grit and that perseverance. I had to believe in myself. And in believing in myself, I every day I try to figure out better ways to go about things. I try to figure out how can I enhance my life? How can I make today better than yesterday? And every day I just woke up and I just try to have that thought process and I try to have a plan every day. So like now when I wake up every day, one of the first questions I ask myself is, what is my plan today? Like what do I want to do? What do I want to accomplish? Early in the morning, right? Because that's the best time to think about that. And I just go from there. And then even now it's not easy. I come up with a plan all the time, but when my mental health is not good, it's not good. Then everything else, it falls to the wayside. And I'm trying to break free of that. But I know I just had the past couple of days where I was highly depressed and just going through it. And it's like deep down inside, I know I need people in my life. I know I need to reach out and communicate with people. But I don't. I isolate a lot. I shut myself away from a lot of people. And then when people are there for me and they want to talk and they want to communicate and they open those doors, I still don't do it. Deep down inside, I know that's what I need, but it's just hard for me. And I think a lot of that comes from fear of being judged, right? And like I said, when you go your whole life feeling unwanted or devalued, it's like it's hard for you to open up to other people, especially when you feel betrayed by the ones that are closer to you, right? Like imagine living and you have all this trust in one individual or a few individuals and they betray you and in your mind and your heart in the ugliest way possible. It makes it hard and almost impossible to trust the next person. It makes it hard for you to comprehend the fact that somebody's trying to be genuine, right? Because it's almost like, oh well, the person I thought would never do me wrong did me wrong. So if they can do it, who's to say somebody else is going to really be genuine and be sincere? Like, so that's a fear, right? A lot of men are afraid to talk about their vulnerabilities and their fears, but I'm not. So I'm also an advocate for men to to get therapy and things of that nature, and just to speak up. A lot of men don't speak up. They going through things, they try to mask it, they try to hide it, but that's not good. It's not healthy. A lot of arguing and yelling is not good for you, right? So I try to be a jack of all trades. I try to be an advocate for anything positive in life. So that's where we are.
Wow. Yeah, there's a lot of things in there. The one thing is when you were speaking about your feelings and your thoughts and whatever, and you were rejected, um, how can you, or people unfriend you because you've been too negative or in their mind, or they say things like that? I mean, why can't you just be yourself, right? And feel comfortable. And that's where what is so amazing is that you're learning to do that and say, okay,
Right,
there's gonna be people who are gonna stick around even when I'm going through shit, right?
right.
and
I
and
think
and I'm not gonna give up on being vulnerable and open because there are people who won't stick around when I'm
right,
going through shit, because those people will be are people you encounter as well, right?
right. So think about me. When I say I'm genuine, man, I honestly feel like I have a pure heart, right? Like I just told this story earlier, right? So I was out and about one day, and I heard this woman. She was just sobbing. She was crying to a friend or a confidant. I don't know who it was. It was just and I didn't know the woman, and I couldn't help myself. I went over to her, and and I had to speak to her because I heard her say that she was fat and unattractive, and she was always going to be alone, and that bothered me, right? Because this is how pure my heart is. I told her, I'm like, listen, not to be religious or anything. I'm like, God brings the right people in our lives at the right moment. If people are saying you're unattractive or they don't like you, well, they're not right for your life. Right. You just need to believe in yourself. You need to love yourself, put yourself first, and just be optimistic and just know that the right people is going to fall in line eventually. It's somebody for everybody. And we ain't just talking about relationships, we talk about friendships as well. Right. So if somebody's that negative, you don't want to chase those people. You want to push them people away. Just allow the real people to be in your life. And what I said to her was, I'm like, I'm not sure who this woman is that you're confiding in, but she's here right now, right? She's not judging you. She's not doing all these things that all the other people said. So you just gotta allow those people to come into your lives, and you just need to relish in that. You need to bask in that because that's worth holding on to, right? Because I have moments where I'll be like, what is wrong with me? It's been people throughout my life that made me feel flawed, made me feel like I'm the problem. But at the end of the day, I have to believe in myself. I have to love myself, and in doing so, I tell myself, no, I know who I want to be, and I know who I am. If nobody else see it, or if this person don't see it, so be it. They're not right for my life. I'm gonna keep being me, keep present myself in the best way I can, and the right people will come along. That's it. Just like my therapist at that given point in time, it's something that I asked for, and I still couldn't find myself to open up to him until one day he gave me that hug and that fatherly presence, and it made me feel secure. That's another thing I like to tell a lot of men. We always say women want security; they want to feel love. No, women don't want that. Humans want that. Anything that's living and breathing wants that. A man wants security as well, right? Like a lot of people say, "Oh, that sounds real feminine." Well, I mean, that's the thing. Men are supposed to be providers. Men are supposed to be both, right? What good is a man to be one dimensional? If you're one dimensional and you only know brute force and all of that yelling and masculine energy, then how can you nurture your significant other? How can you nurture a child? So you got to embrace your femininity as a man. You have to understand both sides to be able to provide. You can't provide halfway. You know what I'm saying? You can't say, "Well, it's a hot summer day. I'm going to protect my wife or my girlfriend today because if the weather conditions are conducive to my liking." And then on a winter day, you like it's too cold. I'm going to house and I don't. She got to fend for herself. You can't provide one dimensional. You have to be well versed. You have to have that balance. And you can how can you balance anything if you only know one thing?
Yeah, there's a lot of issues in there, right? When it comes to these ideas of who you have to be, who you want to be, and who you think you have to be for others or for yourself. And often you even tell yourself you have to be a certain way in order to love yourself. And that or if you're if you have a spiritual knack, you might be thinking, oh, God can never love me the way I am, right? And so on and so forth. And then if you want to go deeper, you can look into the ideas that, okay, if you are around, then you are lovable, right? Because your existence is the condition that makes you lovable, right? And that you're
Right,
loved. And not and that you are all, and then the next thing is to say, okay, we're all sourced from the same source. So we are all, and that source is love or life or whatever you want to call it. Then we are all life, love, and therefore there is nothing to be ashamed of being who you are, right?
right,
And if you are who you are, you have no need to impose that someone has to be a certain way or another way, right? Other than the general rules of respect and so on that we need in order to get along with each other.
right. Yeah, so I mean that's key, man. You know, just knowing yourself. At the end of the day, everything is rooted with self. Um, like like even a job, you know, you can't say, okay, it's a system in place and just hope for everything to just fall in line. You have to have discipline enough to do the job. You have to have that wherewithal. So you have to start with self, and you have to understand. It's like a lot of people don't like to read, right? And you know, I say like the mind is a powerful tool, and it's a tool. It's the biggest organ in your body that needs exercise. So why not exercise, right? Like I know for me, reading is fundamental, and I know growing up we hear those things. And we laugh about it, and we say, "Oh my God!" And here comes another old head trying to tell us to read. But it's very useful, right? It allows you to build on your vocabulary, and then the more you do that, the better you're able to articulate, and you can hold your own in conversations, right? My father always said, you know, knowledge is key, and you always want to be in a position where you can hold your own in any conversation, and that's what I try to do, and I try to tell my kids the same thing. Like, you know, I try to just learn as much as you can, you know. And then when people talking, you could jump right in that conversation, and people respect you like that. They like, oh, okay, he's not one dimensional, especially these people that have these biases, or you know, these stereotypes. And what you just surprised, and they were, oh wow, I didn't know you knew that, or you're very intelligent. And that's something I pride myself on, is in my intellect. Like a lot of people that know me or don't know me, they meet me and say, dang, you're very knowledgeable. So I like that, you know, and that's where I try to be.
Yeah, it's so important to be willing to engage in conversation, right? And in order to feel comfortable with that, you have to start where you're at. And to build on that, yeah, of course you can build on it by reading, by listening, by going to lectures or whatever else you like doing, right? And reading it is certainly is something that is very important. And I remember I live in a country that speaks German, but I have kids and I wanted them to learn English. So I made sure that I wasn't the only one they heard English language from, because I would like read books so that they get a larger amount of vocabulary than I would use in a daily manner, right? On my own, or listen to audiobooks or other ways of allowing them to get a larger vocabulary, and not just the vocabulary, like I said, that I would come up with on my own without thinking about it. And I think that's really, really important, so that you can, like you said, expressing yourself is really important.
Right.
And I'm sure even you said you were moving from different places. They probably had different accents, different ways of using language in the different places you came to.
Right.
I actually moved to countries that had who were speaking different languages, but it's the same principle. You need to adapt. You need to be willing to engage and get to know different ways of expression so that you can be yourself.
Right. Right. You know, every like I said, for me, I'm just trying to be successful, right? That's my biggest goal in life, just to be successful. It's a lot of things I have my hand in. Like I'm also uh, a podcast owner and host. I haven't had an episode in a while, uh, but I was kind of waiting for the New Year's. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna start the year fresh with new materials, new concepts, things of that nature. But when I first started my podcast, it was supposed to be a gateway for my food business, right? Because I'm trying to start my own food truck business. So when I first started, I said, all right, what do I need to be successful? I bought like 5 books from Barnes and Nobles on how to run a successful food truck business. I've Googled a lot of literature, and one thing they all had in common was um, social media, have a social media presence. And they said once you have that, your followers will follow you anyways. So I was like, okay. So when I first started the podcast, it was going to be about food, but a lot of people said, well, I can't talk for an hour and a half about food. I just can't. So I was like, all right, I'll have specific topics. We'll talk about that. And then once I start the food truck business, all my followers, right? Hopefully they're loyal and they're just, they're transition over. So when I first started, that's what the goal was. But literally, I know I was going to fall in love with it. I fell in love with the podcast, and my social life is kind of down because I don't get out much. Having kids and working that'll do it to you. It's called life. So yeah, it's therapeutic for me, right? It allows me to socialize with so many different people with different outlooks and different point of views in life. And like I said, it became therapeutic for me, right? So when I say mental health and therapy, it helped me in that aspect. It's been times where I didn't have a planned podcast, but I was going through it mentally, and I'll seek out some guests or potential guests, and then I just throw a podcast together, and it worked wonders for me. Like it, by the time I got off the podcast, I felt relieved. I felt like a weight was taken off my shoulders. So the podcast, like I treat that like a business. I love doing it. I love talking to people. Uh, and I just love thought provoking conversations. So like I always try to come up with different concepts and different things to talk about. Like I've had debates on there. Like a lot of people say, "Oh, I don't want to have a debate." I'm like, just look at it as a conversation, right? Because that's all a debate is. It's a conversation. You trying to get your point across. I'm trying to get my point across. You think you right. I think I'm right. And it's possible to have a debate that's positive, right? A lot of people think that if it's a debate, it's negative and there's a lot of yelling. No, so yeah, I use it for all kinds of things, man. And I just want to be successful. So like I said, my focus is getting this book released. I will have the physical copies first week of February, so that's exciting. I just can't wait to see my name, my picture on a book. I mean, the physical copy. I just can't wait for that. Uh, yeah, it just that'll be a big feat for me, like a big accomplishment and something that I'd take to the grave, and I just want to keep pushing forward like that. And once I do this food truck thing, that'll be another feat for me. Like, a lot of people say you ain't never gonna be nothing, you never gonna amount to nothing. So these little things right here is powerful and it means a lot to me, right? And I'm not a person that I try to shove it in people's face, but at the same time, I will take solace in the fact that you're looking at me being successful, prospering, thriving, the very person you said they wouldn't. So I do take solace in that. I might just give you a look. I'm not going to sit there and say, I told you this. I'm not like that, but I will look at you. And mentally, I'm like, yeah, I told you. I'm gonna do it, right? And that's why I say I advocate for other people to have that same mindset, man. And one thing I tell my kids real quick is don't do nothing in life unless you're gonna give it 110%. I don't care if it's true tying your shoe. I say, have in your mind you're gonna be the best shoe tire in the world. And as long as you have that thought process going into anything that you do, you can't lose. That's how I feel.
Yeah, I've also find podcasting fabulous, right? I get to know people from all over the world. And I've been doing this a while. It's already over 6 years, so
Ooh,
I've got to know
yeah.
a lot of
So
people,
I'm
and
like
you're
at a
one
year
of
and a
them.
half. I think.
And you're one of them, so this is great. Yeah,
Yeah,
and I've been on some other people's shows, which is also a wonderful thing. I don't do it as often as I have a podcast episode, but I do it once in a while, and it's a beautiful thing too because you share your thoughts and ideas with many people, and
right.
yeah, and everyone gets to profit from it. So
It's
yeah,
it's it's good. Like I haven't been featured on too many people's platforms, but it's something that I'm looking forward to doing now because at the end of the day, it's about networking, right? And that's how you, if you think about it, networking is how you develop friendships. To some capacity, you network some way to gain a friend.
yeah,
So that's where I look at it.
yeah, you
And the thing
approach
is,
people. You have it's also a good reason to approach people, right? Oh, would you
right?
like to be on my podcast, or would you like to have me as a guest?
Yeah, I love it. And and on top of that, this is the thing. By have like a cross promotional type of thing, like you be featuring somebody else's podcast, and then some of their followers now they tapped in onto you, and they like, let me go follow him, and then their friends but like, let me go check him out. Or I like what he said, or he's very intelligent. I like the way he think, and guess what? That's a friend, potential friend. Like it's a lot of people on the podcast mentally going into it. I'm like, all right, well, this is just for business. This is just for the show. But it's people that a lot of my guests, we stay in contact, right? They going through something, I respond. I'm going through something, they always there. So I do have a few of them like that. Then I'm like, wow. And it sucks because a lot of them they don't live in New Jersey. They live states away. So it sucks because we sometimes you develop those friendships and that chemistry and that bond. And it's like, wow, if only this person was closer, life would be great. But at the end of the day, you can't look at that as a negative. You got to look at it as a positive. At least they're there to some capacity, and that's what I do. Whenever every now and then I reach out to them. It might just be just because hey, how you doing? And it's a beautiful thing. And for me, when I look at back at it, I say, wow, we never knew each other, right? We're still getting to know each other. We did the podcast, and it didn't stop there. We continue to keep the doors open for communication. So that's a powerful thing, and that makes me feel like I'm wanted. Remember, I said I had these problems growing up, and I felt unwanted, and it makes me feel valued. Right? When people will come to me and say, last time we had a conversation, you brought me out of a dark space. So right now I feel like wow. Now I feel important. I feel like I'm on top of the world. I feel like I matter to somebody. And that's the beautiful thing about communication. You never know when you're gonna find that comfort unless you
Yeah,
give it a try. So and that's where we at, man. Like so sometimes I just smile outwardly and inwardly. And sometimes people will be like, why did you just start smiling out of nowhere? And the thing is because life is beautiful if you allow it to be.
yeah. It's also when you have a guest, they will reach out to their people as well to let them know they were on a podcast.
Right,
So both sides get new people to get to know their work and what they do and what their message. So
right.
it's a really win-win when things go the way they should, right? That's the
Yeah, I agree.
yeah. So yeah, we're slowly getting to the time where we need to wrap up. So is there any question I haven't asked you that you'd like to answer?
Is it a question of what?
Is there a question that I should have asked you because you want to answer it?
Oh, I mean, no, a specific question. I mean, off the top of my mind, I can't think of anything specifically, but yeah, like I said, it's just, I just want your viewers to always be encouraged and not be afraid to reach out to people, and believe in themselves and just pour out positivity, right? Because I'm a firm believer that what you put out, you'll receive, right? We are all creatures of habit, and we tend to flock with people that's like minded. Um, like for instance, you don't see rich people hanging out with poor people, right? It's a different tax bracket. They can't once you're rich, you can't relate to being poor, and when you're poor, you can't relate to being rich. So it's we tend to flock around like minded people or people that's in the same bracket as us. So like if you positive, you gonna get positive because we attract those type of people, right? Like if you a positive person, you're gonna attract positive people. That's just how that goes. Because negative people, they don't want to be around positive people. They look at when people's toxic, they look at people that's always happy is a weirdo. That's the senses I'm getting from a lot of people. Like so yeah, so for your viewers, man, just believe in yourself, love yourself, put yourself forward first, and just keep pushing through, and continue to persevere and believe that life is great if you allow it.
Wonderful. That's beautiful. And and of course in miracles you have similar sentiments. It says things like, let's see, you when you choose to listen to the Holy Spirit, which is the voice of sanity and love and joy and happiness, right? Then then you're listening to the voice that, and you can always choose to listen to that voice in the midst of anything. If you're negative, listening to ego, which is the voice of separation, right? You can always choose again. You don't have to
Right,
stay stuck. And I think the point that you made about reaching out to people and believing in people, right? That there are the people there that are sane for you, right? You feel sane with them, right? They're there, and you
right,
can reach out and you will find them if you believe they exist, right? If you believe you are sane and you believe sanity exists, sanity is possible, right? To
right,
encounter. But if you're constantly worried about all those people that may not fit that framework, or that there are no such people, it's going to be hard to recognize them and to actually connect with them.
right.
And
Um,
yeah,
another
and
thing,
yeah, we reach out to
another
a
thing I wanted,
whole lot of people, right? When we have as podcasters, right? There's so
right,
many people, and not everyone you'll not be connecting with everyone, and not everyone will say, "Oh, I want to be on your podcast," right? And not
right,
everyone is going to say, "Oh, yay, I can be on your podcast," right? But there
right.
are a whole lot of people who say,
Whole lot.
"Yeah, I want to be on your podcast. Let's do this," right?
One of the hardest things, Ben, that you brought that up. One of the hardest things for me is, when I go out looking for podcast guests, I got a notebook just for guests, and I kid you not, I'm not exaggerating. At one point, I had 67 names written down, like new people, and the thing is, I was like, okay, I want to do 2 podcast episodes a week. Sometimes life's and we can't. And I was like, at least if I have one. Well, the problem with having 67 people or a big list is now they acting like you forgot them. Oh, we talked a month ago and I still didn't get on. I understand, but I have a lot of people ahead of you, and I don't go in no particular order. But so that's one of the hardest things for me because sometimes I might get on the phone with somebody and we have a great conversation. But for me, sometimes what it is we might have a great conversation, but guess what? An hour from now, I might get on the phone with somebody else and we resonate with each other more. We connect a little bit more. We bond a little bit more. And I'm like, you know what? All right. So now, because we was able to bond in such a manner, I'm gonna have them as my next guest, right? And that's how it is. But a lot of times, a lot of these people they fall to the wayside, and then sometimes I go back to reach for them. If, say, for instance, I schedule somebody and they say something came up, and I reach for these other people. I'm like, hey, would you like to hop on? I had a uh, somebody that didn't come through for me. And then they were, oh, now you want me to be a guest? And then you deal with that negativity. So in the beginning, it was very hard, but now I have to like stay business minded. It's a business at the end of the day. And I understand that some people might feel that way. So you got to be able to roll with the punches. Sometimes you got to be like, you know what? have a whole bunch of people that's willing to be a guest. You can't dwell on somebody closing the door. You can't dwell on somebody saying no. Right? You just got to keep pushing. And it was something that you said a minute ago about not being one track minded or something like that along those lines. So I'm not religious. Like I believe in a higher power. And one of the things that I said I want to do for the New Year is I bought study Bibles, right? And one of the books right here actually. All right. So I said, and then my other one, I'm not sure where I put it. It tells you what chapters and what verses to read per day. So essentially, you're reading the whole Bible in 1 year. So that's one thing that I'm also going to apply myself to, and that's something I'm going to do starting with the first week of January. So that's another thing I'm excited about. And I had a conversation with somebody earlier, and they say, if you're not religious, why are you into it? I'm like, well, it's more so for me, for my own understanding, and also to go 40 years doing it my way, and I'm still faced with these bumps and bruises in life. And I'm one to not close the door on any possibility. So I said, let me give that a chance and see if it changes my life for the better. Let's see if it brings more value to my life. Right. And I don't want to say bring value because a lot of things bring value. Again, we're not one dimensional here and it's not one sole thing that brings value. So let's see if it's something that brings more value to my life. So this is just me trying to get a better understanding of the story, the Bible, and also to see what it can bring to my life. So that's another thing I'm looking forward to. I have a friend of mine that we're going to do it together. Each day we'll read it, then we'll go over it. So it's like our own little Bible study. So that's going to be good. And again, we talk about what's therapeutic. So for me, it's also therapeutic because now I get to not only read and study for myself, I get to do it with somebody else. So it allows me to converse with somebody else and it bounce ideas off of them. Oh, this is what I thought about this passage. What did you think? So it's about growth at the end of the day. Growth and advancement. That's just what I'm about. Progression. We don't digress over here. It's just all about progression. So I just wanted to add that because that's something else that I'm going to do for the New Year's.
Yeah, that's
And
beautiful.
I think the hopes is to bring more positivity, if that's even a thing, because I'm highly positive. So that kind of positive energy, I think that it would change my mindset in a way that, yeah, I think it'll be good for me.
I think that's beautiful, and of course, the Miracles also has a workbook where it has 365 lessons, so one per day of the year, if one wants to do it that way, or one can take a little longer per lesson. But anyways, so that's a cool thing to do because you always have something that a thought that you can refer to for the day and think about, and
Right,
also exchange with others if you're doing it with partners or other people. And
right,
it's a really, really positive thing to do because you have a focus, right? You have something that gives a momentum to your day, right?
right,
Something, impulse for your day.
right,
Yeah, and I think, and it doesn't matter if it's whether it's the Bible or another source, right? It's just it's so beautiful to be willing to engage with that, and I think that's great.
yeah. I mean, they say God is love, right? And,
Right?
and I feel like the world will be at peace. The world will be a better place if we just love a little bit more,
Yeah,
right? A lot of people, a lot of animosity, a lot of anger, a lot of resentment, a lot of toxicity, and not enough love, right? If we love on each other a little bit more, it'll bring more peace to the world. So
yeah,
a lot of people say they waiting for change or they want to contribute to making the world a better place. Well, it starts there with love.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. The only sentence I got through when I heard the voice of God once in my life, and the only sentence that came through was "Let us love one another." So,
See, there you go. There you go.
so that's really, really, really crucial. Yeah,
Right. Yeah. So I mean, if you have a loving heart, man, you able to like pour that into other people and make them feel good about themselves, and then and then they might pour it off just to somebody else, and that's how we evolve. You can't grow with toxicity. You just can't. You be at a standstill, right? The way you grow is to open your heart and open your mind to others. Allow them
Yeah.
to help you heal during your journey. Allow them to pick you up when you need picking up, right? A lot of people
And allow
fall
yourself
and they
to
don't
pick
reach other
others up.
people, right? A lot of people fall and they don't know where to go from there. You take away B and they don't know how to get to C. And that goes to back to that knowledge that I was talking about. Like it's having that wherewithal. My father used to tell me and my younger brother all the time that never let nobody call you a dummy or never feel like you're stupid, right? And he used to tell us, what is a dummy? What is stupid? And we used to be like, when you don't know nothing. He's like, stupid, dumb is the inability to learn. So as long as you have the ability to learn, as long as you have those capabilities, you can't be a dummy. It's not possible. A lot of people said that Einstein was dumb. Like, a lot of people they say it was dumb, but like, oh, look at these inventors. If they was dumb, then how are they able to construct the things that they did, right? Because like I said, to be dumb or stupid, it's the inability. So if you have the ability to learn, you can't be dumb. You can't allow somebody else to call you dumb.
You shouldn't allow anyone to do that, no matter what.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, at the same time, you can
So
only control
yes,
yourself.
I do like the idea of the ability to learn. That's a beautiful thing, right? But that's the nature of life, that you have the ability to continue, and whatever ever that looks like, right?
Mm,
Because as long as you're alive, right?
right,
And whether that's with a body or without a body, we don't. That's something you can think about, right? Like
right,
in the Course in Miracles, it has the thought, I am not a body, I am free, I am just as God created me. Okay. Yeah, well, we can relate to that because what we're speaking about is not about the
right,
body, right? So, yeah, I'm not a body because what I'm speaking about has nothing to do with a body, right?
right.
So, and I'm free in that way. I certainly am free, right?
Gotcha.
Yeah. So, and another one was that the body's only purpose is for communication. So, and I think that's very significant to what we were speaking about.
Right.
So, yeah, I would like to invite anyone who would like to be a guest on this podcast to reach out to me. Everyone who is listening and watching, thank you so much for joining. And please review the podcast, let people know about it. And if you know someone who would be a great guest, you can let them know about it, that they have the opportunity here. And blessings to you all until next time.